started that truck that Joe ended
breezed
up
through
with.
them, but
Yeah.
I saw the recommendation
Yeah.
from Rob, and that was,
Oh, did you?
Yeah, this crust gate is, I think that,
yeah, and I looked at that, and, that's, so on that one, Rob kind of talked about, at the annual meeting, and said, we can make one of them that's 30 feet long.
what I see good about it is, it's not going to freeze up if in the wintertime, it's up in the cold. If it's opened up, you recycle all the batteries. Yeah. And plus, it's got a hydraulic ram on it versus a motor. That's big going. Quite awesome. How's the restaurant coming? You can open that?
January, February.
Yeah. Oh, that's soon. I thought you were going to say,
Good evening. We'll get started.
maybe just like Jeff.
Call the Rock-Koshkonong Lake District Board of Commissioners to order for December the 3rd, 2019. I'll confirm the meeting's public notice sent to the same people. Bill, I'm still having trouble with Sumner. I'm still having issues with
Not getting a response.
Town of Sumner, right?
Okay, they had a new email address. They had email problems and had to change their email.
Okay,
So if you're using the old one, you won't get through.
that's probably why.
Okay, and honestly, I don't have anyone, but I know that they have their own.
Okay. Approval of the agenda.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor of the agenda as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. Approval of the October 17, 2019 meeting minutes.
Is there a copy in there? There was a couple items I'd seen. A couple items I'd noticed were in the public comment, Mr. Chairman. There was comments from, I believe it was Mr. Dusterbeck regarding the, and we'd have to go back and listen to the tape, the exact verbiage, that there was really no value in doing any boat landings around the lake and increasing public access to the lake, and I'd like that as part of the minutes, please.
Will you jot that on there and I'll give that to Jenny?
Yep, I'll email it to you.
Okay, appreciate that. Any other corrections, questions, concern of the October 17 meeting minutes?
Thanks.
Hearing none, all in favor of the meeting, approval of the meeting minutes as amended by Mr. Proud, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Public participation on agenda items only. Or any public participation on the agendas? Any public participation on the agenda items? Treasurer's report. Mark?
Okay, I printed this in landscape, so it's a little easier to read. Since our last meeting, we've had deposits of $408.68 for total year-to-date revenues of $172,985.95. Beginning balance in the general fund was $89,945.96. Ending balance $67,256.98. Bills in hand to pay. Kim Botham for dam operations 16 weeks. The last 16 weeks of 2019, $4,800. Buoy removal from John Heller for $425. So that'll leave us with $62,031.98.
Mark, that 16 weeks goes to DC1, the week of December 1st.
Oh,
Mark,
okay.
August 8th to December 1st.
So we'd have 4 weeks owed.
Right, for 2019, right.
Okay. I'll make a note of that. Balance in the Lake Improvement Fund, $106,839.94. The dam fund, which is made up of a money market account and what was 3 CDs. CD2 had 208, 388, 75. That matured. And they updated some interest of 9169. The money market account in the dam fund was 51,732.94. Now those are combined as one money market at 260, 213, 238. CD1, 234, 069, 75. CD3, 206, 332, 52. Dam fund total 700,615, 65. There's a potential liability in the Jefferson County payback of 175, which the net for the dam fund, if that's payable, 525, 615, 65. All funds less liability 694, 487, 57. The next page is several analysis, and I'm just going to go through this index and hit the highlights, and if anybody has any questions, we can go into more detail.
Let me stop you right there. Is there any questions on the Treasurer's report so far, General Fund, Lake Improvement Fund, and Dam Fund?
My only question with the money market over 250 is that, I thought the FDIC insured the 250, and if it's over 250, it should be in a separate account. Is that right? You're not supposed to have money over 250? So then it's not insured? Or does that not matter?
The amount over 250 isn't insured.
That is correct. Over 250 is not insured.
I don't know. So is it worth having it all in one money market, or should it be split up?
It's public funds. You should split it up.
We did not renew that CD to put some funds in that money market, so later on the agenda, we have the dam issue. Is that somewhat accurate, Mark?
That is, we can renew a CD, but if we need the money for either a project or a payback to the Jefferson County, you're going to pay penalty on the money and basically net.
But we could split it in a money market.
Yeah, I can check the limits. I know seemed like it's 285 on the marital stuff, but I don't know about the commercial.
Okay. So can you inquire?
Yeah.
Okay. Appreciate it. All right, go ahead.
Okay. So this is kind of about general financial past practice and activity. Page 3, I did what they call a sinking fund analysis, and that basically takes a look at our CDs versus inflation, and then a relative value. And then I compared it to the actual value because of the interest being spent off the fund over time. So in the 3 years we had that CD that matured, said 95% of its relative value should be worth a little more if we would have kept the interest with the fund, which I think is worth writing some rules around at some point. So next.
So you're saying that the interest off of those funds was put in either the lake fund or the general fund?
Yeah.
And then allocated towards something?
A lot of times it was put on the revenue line, and only borrowed monies were paid back, not interest. So it'll make more sense as I go through the next 3 pages here. I did a cash flow analysis for 2017, 2018. Whoops, I missed the 2019 updated budget, I'm sorry. updating the budgets to date. Basically, the two big items are legal and engineering, and our cost of operations are pretty well spent. Considering it's December, that makes sense. There's going to be a little overrun there. Legal's pretty much spent, $2,700 left. It's a potential bill still from the meeting from Wheeler that I haven't seen yet, from the August meeting. And then engineering, $27,766.50 remains, and that's going to fund our activity with the boat landing and the dam improvements. So whatever bills come from that this year should be funded. Hopefully there's some money left. So the 2017, 2018 cash analysis, basically what we didn't see in the annual reporting was 2017, there's an additional $27,000 in cost, basically to pay back legal. It was presented to us as if we ended the year $27,000 under budget. Actually a bust by the time you net out the borrowing and payments back to the lake fund. 2018, that's when we finally reported that activity as an $80,000 return to the lake management fund. That's what kind of triggered me to go back and look at the activity in the 17 and 18 statements, and the next page is what happened within the lake fund since inception, that with the exception of a few years. That's page 7. So the fund was basically established with tax dollars in 2019. We received a grant in 2010. 2011, they added tax dollars. So 2011 total would have been $161,885. We had past costs in 10 and 11 of $125,000 plus. So that would have got us down to $36,309. Reported on the annual was beginning balance of $161,886, close enough. Interest and then another add from tax dollars of $16,000. So then we have, I didn't have any data from 12 to 15, so I'm jumping to 16, where we show a balance of $105,569. 2016, we transferred $87,000 to general fund. 2016, the balance is $18,569. 17, we transferred back from the general fund $87,000, but then fell short and had to borrow another $60,000, which we paid back in 18. So none of that was recorded on our annual statements, so it's kind of invisible to the public. And what it amounts to is if you look at the budgets below and how much was spent that year. 16, we budgeted $20,000, spent almost $170,000 on legal. 17, budgeted $40,000, spent $81,000. So there's $190,000 burnt. So my point to all this is the fund's no longer the fund, it's tax dollars paid back. So when you look at the next page, you have the last 4 years of new initiative budgets and the actual spending. So funds that the taxpayers approved and that were not spent on projects amount to $402,200. So again, my argument with allocating these funds that have been paid back with tax dollars, it's impacted our ability to do any projects. So when we look at funding our projects over the next year and a half, we need to look at these funds and put the money back where it belongs, rather than asking the taxpayers for more. So. Page 9 is a parcel count summary. I didn't realize I had to do this, but I had to go through all the tax rolls from all the townships and counties and assess Lake District charges. So it was a pretty fun exercise, and I learned quite a bit. So anyway, the actual parcels in the district are 4,547, plus or minus a couple that are still in question. All of our past budgets have been made on 4,000 parcels. So kind of understating revenue, when we're going and asking taxpayers for more money, we're telling them we don't have as much as we really do, which I don't think is right. So the impact that has on the 2020 budget is we have 24,615 unallocated plus 2,000 at the roundup to go to 45 per parcel. It worked out where 2,000 was unallocated. So there's 26,615 unallocated for 2020, which is quite a lot of money on a $200,000 budget or $178,000 budget. That's makes it a challenge. And then the next page is, this is what used to be sent out by the district to each of the townships, which indicate a parcel count and a dollar value. So it wasn't that we didn't know how much revenue we were going to get. We just didn't want to share it for some reason. So a little bit of history on what we don't want to do anymore.
Mark,
Questions?
when we look at this right here, this is the budget that's presented, and it's showing actual.
Yeah.
I think he was showing all the revenue that was coming in. When you're sitting there and saying there's 500 more parcels, great. That money wasn't going, I mean, that money was being shown and coming in and was being shown in the compilation done at the end of the year. That's actual revenue that came in.
That's the actual, but here's your budget, 180,000.
Okay, that's 2018. You can't take 2019 budget and 2018.
185 versus
Again, there's 2018 budget was
110.
185, actual was 194. So he's showing those other dollars in there.
Well,
And that would be in the compilation that was done by the accountants at the end of the year, I would guess, too, correct?
I have a lot of information from the accountants if you want to see it, Steve.
Okay, I'm just saying, I think it was all accounted for.
Well, you were part of the compilation, so to ask me would be...
Well, no, I wasn't part of the compilation, I was not the treasurer.
We paid you mileage to come up to participate,
That I sat in on those meetings, that is correct.
so don't ask me.
So yeah, well, I'm telling you it's in there. So you're saying it's not, and it was in there, and it's included.
160,000 times divided by 4,000 parcels is $40.
Correct.
Right. So if
Right.
it's
So
4,500
I'll buy
parcels-
what you're saying is that when he was calculating the budget, he was using 4,000. I'll remember that number for all the years I've been associated with our KLD. Everybody used 4,000 parcels. But I'm also telling you that when the revenue came in, if the revenue came in at 4,300 at whatever the rate was, it showed all that in the annual revenue.
My point is that you shouldn't ask taxpayers for more money if you have more money. That's all I'm trying to tell you.
Mark, on page 7, the 2016 transfer to general fund, where did that 87,000 come from?
Page 7, 87,000 came out of the Lake Management Fund. And then because it wasn't paid back the same year or recorded as revenue, debit and credit on the way through, the taxpayers never got to see that activity. So the borrowing from the funds, it was really never challenged because it was just, it's like using your savings account to supplement your checking account. And that's not what the funds are intended for.
And the same is true for the 2017, 2 entries, one of 50 and one of 10?
Right.
They came from the Lake Management Fund as well?
Yeah, this is all the activity between the Lake Management Fund and the
Okay.
general fund.
And there was no record of those transfers being either
The-
approved or challenged?
The first one that was recorded was the transfer back in 2018. And I think because that washed the books, so to speak, so you would either have 80,000 left or you'd have to explain where the 80,000 went.
I see,
'Cause
okay.
you got to the end of the story and now you got to tell. So.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mark, very enlightening. We need a motion to approve the treasurer's report and pay the bills that were presented of $4,800 and $425.
So moved. A second.
A motion and a second to approve treasurer's report and pay the bills. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Passed. Lake Management, at last meeting, you'll remember, I presented a proposal for legal. If I can find it again. Here it is. I presented a proposal for Attorney Danielle Thompson. She is out of Jefferson. She is counsel for the Lake Ripley Lake District. And she had sent me this proposal. Her rate would be $175 an hour. And her partner, Whitney DeVoe, would be at $150 per hour, and then there's a services, I would assume that for their staff at $60 an hour. Mike, have you had any more conversations with?
No, with
Okay, this would be as needed basis. It wouldn't be there wouldn't be a retainer along with this. Discussion? Motion?
So she already has some background working with the Lake District.
She does, yes. Mhm. Fees would be charged along with expenses and be billed on a regular monthly basis. And the Lake District would agree to make those monthly payments. Interest rate of 1% added on overdue balances. And she can be discharged at any time. Or the firm, I should say. Discussion? That's part.
Problem with it?
What's our first legal need?
It may be helpful to be included in any engineering contracts that go forward. Not saying that Mr. Montgomery wouldn't be able to do that, but if we needed some counsel to overlook that or any other contract that we might enter into. I don't see it as a big dollar item. So, but we'll get a feel for what it costs. Buck?
She might also help with some of the grants that you apply for. Lake Griffith's gotten a lot of grants and funds, and a lot of times legal looks at those and make sure that they're done properly. So that would be primarily the two, would be the contract. Just have somebody review it, use an hour or two at the most. So it's not a lot of time.
I'll make a motion to hire her as our attorney.
Is that a one-year contract then?
No, it's just a representation contract. No time on it.
Not paying her, so stop.
Yeah, that's right. Except for the bill you own. I'll second it.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to retain Attorney Thompson, Attorney DeVoe, and staff on an as-needed basis. Discussion on the motion. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Indian Ford Dam. Operations, Mike, you have anything to add on operations?
You have this, no, that's down further, two
Yep,
item.
yep.
Okay. No, everything's open,
Okay,
except for that new gate we want.
except for the new one that doesn't exist yet. Okay, next on the dam, an RFP bid results contract award for the Indian Ford Dam Tanner Gate, which is a little inaccurate for an agenda item, for option 2. These would be engineering services. I have included all of you on the bids that we received, conversations between Mike, myself, and Rob Montgomery. He is out of the country, so he can't be here. He has recommended Mead and Hunt. Is that correct, Mike?
Yes. Yep.
So, go ahead. You can explain the gate choices.
Mead and Hunt, there was two bids. One came from Ayers and Associates, they're out of Green Bay. The other from Mead and Hunt out of Middleton, Wisconsin. And Mead and Hunt was the actual engineering firm that did the prior work on the dam. So they have a lot of knowledge. They actually have some files left on that. They did come up, I think they both came relatively close on the Tainter Gate, but Mead and Hunt had a new design, crest gate, that's been being used, and that's actually a hydraulic run gate. I got one picture, maybe I could, Justin, you want to pass it around? It's kind of a,
It's quite easy.
it's like a door laid horizontally on the bottom, but it lays down flat underneath the water, which saves a lot of freezing up problems. Debris goes right over the top of it, doesn't get caught up any height or volume, and it would actually save us from probably putting an expensive walkway over the top of the, from the spillway to the powerhouse. And I guess I'm kind of going along with what Rob thinks. Like, these guys didn't need the borings, they didn't need, there's a lot of information that some contractor could request that they already have information for, which will lower the bid and the price.
That's from 2003 work, if I remember reading
Right, yeah.
right? That was before the dam was turned over to the
Right.
district.
Yeah,
It
and
was
they
done
actually,
for Rock County.
and where we're going to locate it is actually the work that they did, so they've got all the,
Would that be the recommendation? I know we've talked that this is potentially step one.
Phase 1, yes.
We have phase 1, step 1, whatever. If we look to go further east, would that be the same design that would be used?
Right.
If we did something at the
That lay
spillway and
flat,
dug out
right.
and laid something flat?
right.
And that
It
would
could
that be more
extended, right,
cost-effective than everything? It looks to be
Right.
more cost-effective,
Yeah.
what I read.
yeah.
Yeah, but the deal is just getting it down deep enough, because that's where we get all the volume force from, is the water depth.
Right, and there it is deep enough, because we got extra depth there.
Yeah, but the one in the picture looks like it's not real tall, you know, we're talking,
Yeah. Right.
all the volume
That's not
comes
a
the
good
fact that
picture,
it's,
right?
It wouldn't be the one at a time.
yeah, it'd be the same way it would work.
And this,
Depth is what moves all the water.
sorry,
You're good.
this bid would be based on a performance specification approach, basically a design build. So the engineer that actually constructs, gets the contract for construction and installation would be part of the specification process. In other words, design build, as I said. So phase one recommendation is for $63,200 from Mead and Hunt.
What's budgeted for that, Mr. Chairman?
You're going to have to ask the treasurer.
I think we thought it was going to be cheaper, but
So I think we budgeted 50,000, is that correct, for 2020?
Well, and then added in, so new initiatives, 50,000, engineering, 15,000, legal, 3,000. And
Well, that
then,
was the boat landings were 50, I think we're talking the dam,
I think they're both the same,
okay?
aren't they?
So then if we do...
oh, I'm sorry, then Indian Fort Dam modifications, 50,000.
right.
So if we run at 37,000 left, 27 or 37,000 left?
So you're taking the boat landings and the dam?
No.
All of it?
No, I'm backing up to the 50,000 for the Indian Fort Dam modification and looking at the 27,766 we have remaining this year, depending on what we spend to get there.
Some of this money, though, will be coming out of the grant money if we get it, though.
Well, that's, see, and then we have another 26 unallocated. So one of the points we need to send home is that we don't go beyond the engineering and grant application portion until we know what
Right.
we have or don't have for grants.
That's why time is of the essence to get this taken care of so that we will get the grant, because it has to be in by February 28th.
Mead and Hunt will submit that grant application as part of this RFP.
That's
says
the
that
grant
on the bid.
application, and that costs money to do that, too. That's not just engineering, so.
Well, and the other way, the one thing the budget doesn't show is how we receive our revenue, where it's over the course of the year, and it's, you'll get some by the end of before the 1st, and you'll get some by July 31st, if there's a even split, per se. And then you're going to have some delinquent taxes that we get all year long.
Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the bid opening is in July 1?
I did look through Rod's notes. I remember seeing something like that.
So we really wouldn't know until that time,
But the grant application would be applied for, though,
February 28th.
and Rob Davis thought there was a very good chance of us getting at least 200,000 out of that, so.
Right.
And there's other avenues, too, to get more grants. So.
So, Mr. Chairman, you said Phase 1 was 63.2?
Correct.
And I think I remember reading that. And wasn't Phase 2 80, not to exceed? And again, rough numbers, I read it, I didn't know we needed to print a copy. It was like 85,000 for Phase 2?
Yeah, let's see, I got it here someplace.
No, the 63.2 was for the crest gate,
82,000 for the Tanner Gate,
Painter Gate, yeah,
and
because there's less engineering required for the crest gate.
I believe Ayers, weren't they at 86 or?
I believe so, yeah.
86,000, I think Ayers was at.
No, I agreed with Rob's. I read Rob's recommendation that Chair forwarded. I mean, I think that made sense, made very good sense, to go with a local firm, even better. And a local firm.
And the people that have worked on it before.
That's worked down at the dam before, exactly.
They put all that concrete in where we're talking about taking it out.
Right.
They're the ones
So
who
was
did
that a
that
motion,
repair.
Steve, to accept?
No, I was open for discussion. I'm just, if we budget, if we're going to go over, we have to tell people. That's all I'm saying.
We're going to go over.
Any other discussion or a motion? That motion should be to grant the RFP award to one of the two companies that bid.
Yeah. I'll make that motion. I'll make a motion to grant it to Mead and Hunt, follow Rob Montgomery's recommendation, and
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second to grant the contract. Further discussion on the motion? Further discussion on the motion? All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. Next would be an item I called tools for the dam operator. The operator of the dam would like some small tools, grease gun, broom, some other small items that would help him do his job. There are some when we start operating the gates on the east side, there are some maintenance requirements for those. So I know we had some issues this past summer when one gate didn't move.
Yeah,
And all it needed was
Grease.
grease. So anything else on tools? Mike?
Well, Tim wanted the air compressor, but I think we're past that stage of it right now. Leaves are gone, and with this new gate possibly being in it, I don't think we have to look at the
Okay.
air compressor option right now.
All right.
yeah, I know when I was running the slide gates over on the other side, I mean, I put tubes and tubes and tubes of grease in those things. They require a lot.
So he doesn't have any,
Well, should we have an account like at Gamble's, or that if he needs something, broom, shovel, put a limit on it?
you're the
I
big
think
cheese of the dam operation.
Well, I think we should set up an account then at Gamble's local store for shovels, simple tools.
What, are we giving him the authority to just go and purchase those without, and is this something, dollars are spent, we find out afterwards?
Well, he could maybe make it that he calls one of us, board members, whoever, to get them tools.
That's why we're having this discussion.
That would,
with
I'd feel much more comfortable with that.
Yeah.
Are we treating him like a subcontractor or an employee?
We're treating them like an employee because we give them workman's comp. So I don't know how the punching
Well,
in and
we-
punching out and how that works, but
Yeah, we have workman's comp, but I don't know how we're tagging it to Kim. Like, I just have a $300 a week charge that we don't have, you know, a I-9 or anything that you would normally do for an employee.
We got to be a
So-
little careful here. We're coming off the agenda here.
Yeah. But to me, that's a difference between buying the tools for him or having him bring it.
I agree, I wouldn't hire a roofer to put a new roof on the powerhouse and then go buy him a nail gun. You know, if he was a subcontractor.
So I would suggest that we just get a list of tools needed and buy them, then bring that invoice back to the board, is what I would suggest, but
I agree with that, Mr.
That's-
Chairman.
that's why we're talking about
Sounds
it.
good.
So,
And if he needs something in the immediate,
well, I mean,
That
it's
stuff I can get himself
very
if he needs
predictable
some.
what he needs, unless we're doing a project.
yeah, but I'm saying if you can't wait till the next meeting to get a case of grease, I'll drop one off and
Right.
Just bring the
you guys
invoice.
can, yeah, you guys can worry about that later.
I don't have it for an action item, but I think we're just talking small tools here, so,
Yeah, I don't think it's a big deal to figure out a way to get it done.
all right. Mark, velocity and depth gauge analysis.
So I talked to the DNR, not part of the operating order, talked to the USGS, and not exactly sure what the data was collected for, and then talked to the National Weather Service, who does the flood forecasting, and they do use the data for flood forecasting. So we keep them. Per Mark Richardson's comment last time, I mean, everybody uses it, everybody likes it, that makes perfect sense to keep them. So my journey started with, do we really need them for the operating order? Answer was no, but they serve a different role than what I thought they were for, so I went down the wrong path. Got lost in the woods.
Okay, any questions on that item? Okay, short and sweet. Landing and lake access. Land appraisal for Bingham Road Landing, and I apologize, I know it was brought up, naming that landing something else, but I couldn't find it in the minutes or whatever, but, Hammakers? Okay.
I thought it was Schumacher's. That's what everyone else called it when we were kids.
Bill Burlingame is going to represent Bob Vansky from the town of Albion tonight, so I had asked Bob to come up with some cost estimates for the appraisal. There's a lot of discussion that goes into this landing. And we can certainly have that this evening. I told Bob we'd bring this up, we'd discuss the appraisal. The appraisal seems the first step to anything. If this land is out of reach, or they don't want to sell it, or the price suddenly quadruples, then, any other discussion is really mute. So, Bill?
Bob gave me a call today, and he indicated that Tim Anderson out of Janesville, appraiser, said $1,200 to $1,500 to do a DNR type of appraisal for that land. LLC Dusterbeck came in at $2,000 to $2,500 to do that. The only two that gave him back any information. Both of them said that they could have that information done if the board would, let's say, approve something like that tonight. Could have that information back and done by the January meeting. In other words, it needed about 30 days to do it. Okay. With that also, Bob and I sat down. I'll give the board this. We kind of, if you want to call it a flow chart, a working chart, an idea on how you may want to move forward with this. It's also maybe really meant to keep the transparency open on this. I'm assuming somebody's catching stuff for Jim.
Yeah, that's right.
And this is just something that we sat down and kind of looked at. I'm sorry, folks, I don't have everything for everybody. But what it really is, it sat down in the Bingham Road Landing, and if you want to take the time to read the 2 pages, it really just states who owns the landing now, what are you looking at, who you need to purchase it from, it says, really the first thing is, you said, Al, you need to get an appraisal. And then it goes in here, who's paying for the appraisal, who's the appraisal company, and what's the timeline on the appraisal. So we know that now. We know what the appraisal is going to cost, and we know when they can have it back to you. You're going to need a survey the land also. And who's paying for the survey, and again, the timeline. You got to then, the next thought was negotiate with the landowner. You know, I think Mr. Montgomery presented a few months back a kind of a temporary drawing or an idea of what that landing should be. And you were looking at, I believe, 2 acres, but it didn't take you all the way to the lake. And when I talked to Bob about it, it may be a good time if you're going to do this. And once you get the appraisal back, you may want to ask them to appraise it a couple ways. 2 acres above the lake, and then take it all the way to the lake. You know, in other words, do you really want something in between your land and the lake, other than the road? And, you know, it may be the perfect time, you know, if the price is right, to purchase it now versus trying to purchase it down the road, if they're willing to sell. You know, it says how much land, who buys the land, who owns the land. Then you're going to have an engineer really come up with a design for it. You know, is the design that Montgomery gave you the one you want? It may be, it may not be. Then you go to the point of the RFP. You need to, or you need to approve, just like you did here tonight, you need to approve the RFP. And who's writing the RFP? And who's paying for the RFP? Because you still got to public notice the RFP, you know, post a notice the RFP. And again, the timeline. You know, these are kind of just a guidance that, you know, thinking moving forward, if you're going to, you know, venture into this or really any other project, that maybe you might want to look at a similar flow chart. And the next page, and the second page, says partner with. As of right now, the township of Albion and Sumner. You got Rock County, you got Dane County, you got Jefferson County. There's been conversations with Dane County that they may want me interested in buying it. You also have the DNR. You got the state tourism to look at. You got the RKLD and stuff. But you also then got all these businesses on the lake that are going to benefit from this. And maybe the business owners step up and, you know, put some money into it, instead of always asking the residents to do all this. Because they're the ones who are going to gain the most out of it. And you look at grants, you look at, again, from that then to back down to ownership, who's maintaining it? You know, we've had conversations where, you know, you, the board, have indicated to the people that we really don't want, as a lake district, you don't want to maintain it. Does the county really want to maintain it? You know, maybe if Dane County purchased it, would they maintain it? Or would we be willing to, as a lake district, which would have to go to the annual meeting, I would think, are we willing to fund some money to it for, you know, for maintenance on it? But these are costs, you know, then, like I say, the cost of it. And where's the funds coming from? And how much money do you really need? How much is the RFP? Who's there overseeing this? Will you use Montgomery or will you use another company on it? And then finally you accept the RFP, you know. And then once this is all done, there was a conversation Bob and I had, even though the constituents at the annual meeting gave their opinion and we all voted on it to give the Lake District or the boat landing $50,000. We entrust the board to spend that $50,000, I just want to call it respectfully, for this project. But, you know, really after that, does it have to go back to the constituents to approve anything over $50,000 if you move forward with it? I would think yes. You know. And I don't.
Same as goes with the dam, exactly. I mean, that's what was budgeted last year. I mean, to follow state statutes.
I don't think you're going to build this boat landing for $50,000.
Well, no.
Anyway, that's just what Mike asked, or Bob and I talked about, and I said I'd present. I've got a couple of copies of this if somebody wants one, but I think for transparency purposes, you've got now a piece of paper that goes into the archives stating, here's maybe a suggestion on how you move forward with this. If I may say, I think in the future, on anything that this board does, you have paper trail, so that we as constituents have an opportunity to see this, and not as the things we pass.
Thank you, Bill. At the very least, it gives us a sort of an outline of where the discussion should go. And I'll open it up to members here. We're really talking about the appraisal of the landing per the agenda. It was stated 12 to 1,500 for the appraisal. And just for information, I think the survey would cost about the same. But the appraisal's on the agenda.
Start somewhere.
Are you open for discussion on that? Because,
I am.
Bill, thank you. I think
I
this
am.
is a good document. And in terms of that, I mean, we're talking of the appraisal. Have we even thought about reaching out to the owners of the property to see, first of all, A, if they're willing to sell,
Yes.
and B, have they given us a price that is off the wall?
Here's the deal that Bob told me. He's reached out to him. I thought this was addressed at a couple different meetings.
It was.
But Bob reached out to him, and they are willing to sell.
They've said, but they haven't given a price, have
They're
they?
going to sell it at appraised value.
Okay, appraised.
So that's where, when I asked Bob about that, I said, your original drawing was 2 acres, and it wasn't to the lake. Now, every boat land I've ever been on pretty much goes to the lake. And, if you're going to purchase this, or, whomever purchases it, would you not want to purchase maybe 2.5 acres all the way to the lake, instead of cutting that off for that drawing that Montgomery did?
Yeah, I agree with that. So my thought on it is, instead of paying for an appraisal in the get-go, why wouldn't we write an offer that has an appraisal contingency and, in it? And so then, once we have an accepted, and not an accepted offer, but an accepted option, not an option to purchase, not necessarily an offer to purchase, and then has an appraisal contingency in it where it's got to appraise, and it's going to have a survey. The survey is going to be part of that offer, and an appraisal is going to be a part of that offer. And why don't we agree on a price that we have the option to buy it at, and at that point, then we can spend the money, because we can give an offer written for free, and we can go through this negotiation process for free.
I think what Bob would, if I may address this or not?
Well, yeah, there are several problems with that. One, they asked for an appraisal.
That's what they
Okay.
did. They asked Bob to get an appraisal, and they indicated to Bob that they will sell it at appraised value.
And
So,
Then I think we make a motion to, based on that, we make a motion, and I'm sorry, you gave two figures, 1,500 and 2,000?
12 to 15.
Tim Anderson for 1,200.
1,200.
1,200 to 1,500.
Okay.
And LLC Dusterbeck from 2,000 to 2,500.
Then I'd
So
make
I-
a motion of Tim
I-
Anderson, we hire Tim Anderson to do an appraisal of not only the 2 acres, but agree with Mr. Burlingame that we look at how much property it is to go down to the lake and then get an appraisal on that.
And just as a side note, I know you made a motion, but on a side note, I just had a commercial appraisal done on 7 parcels, and I paid $1,250 for that done at the property I bought at North Shore. So it sounds like it's right in, and that was Mark Anderson out of Fort Atkinson.
I'll second his motion to hire the appraisal firm of, pardon?
We want to look at that property though, so that appraisal will go a lot higher if there's buildable property on that versus landing.
That's not our issue, because we haven't decided who's going to own this yet.
Right.
And until that decision is made,
We'll look at 3 acres versus 4 or 2 acres though, and say,
Right.
okay, if
That
you're up
makes sense.
higher, this is what it's going to be, because if you have buildable property, it's going to be a lot higher then.
Buck, you have a comment?
You might want to just go anywhere from 2 to 4 acres, just as kind of configuration, so you know what's the area, so you can address whether you have buildable acres and not buying that land between it, which costs a lot of money, but talk to the appraiser, get some options, so that you're not tied into only 2 acres. You might go up to 4, but it'd be a configuration that would, when you talk with Romac, who you talking to, isn't it, Bill?
Pardon?
Is he talking with Romac, or who's he
He
talking
talked to Tim Anderson.
Tim Anderson?
Yeah, but I think there was no,
For, I mean, they had to, okay.
okay, he's, you know, at seminary, I don't know who he's talking with at the seminary, but I think, if I may, there was enough of us out there when this all started to look at that land. And where Bob indicated back from the landing, let's call it 100 feet, 100 yards, from 100 yards to the lake, it's pretty much floodplain.
It's not buildable.
Floodplain.
It doesn't floodplain.
Flood storage, it's flood something.
So it should appraise low.
Yeah.
Yeah, it should appraise much lower.
It should appraise much lower,
right.
There's a spring right there too, is there inside a ways?
Yeah,
Or
Boat
creek?
marsh.
yes.
Okay.
So if there's a drainage ditch, but there's also
Yeah.
a spring right by where you cut through the road there.
Right, so I mean, I would think it's, I hate to use the word, very low value land.
Okay.
Are we going to assume that they're going to accept the appraisal that we pay for,
Yep, that's what they,
or are they going to dispute that and hire their own appraisal?
We're getting
They're
way,
going to just accept this appraisal that we pay for?
we're getting way ahead of ourselves.
Well, obviously.
Yeah, I know, we're getting, discussion on how much land to have appraised is a good discussion, but we simply have a motion and a second to hire the appraisal done,
If
period.
we spend $1,250 on appraisal and they decide that that isn't valuable, they would expect us to pay the second or the third until we find a value that we can take an average of? Or would they be expecting, these are all the little things that if we spend $1,250 today, we might be spending this over and over again or never get it done.
Correct. I would think the latter would be true. They wanted us to get an appraisal, and that's what we're going to do.
and that was from day one. That was their request from the Lake District, or from, I shouldn't say it, from Bob Bensky, from the very get-go on this one. He talked to me, he said, we will sell it to you at appraised value. Now, remember too, I believe, the decision-making, I think, for that is made in New York.
It's a ways away. So we have a motion and a second to hire an appraisal to appraise the Bingham Road Landing, Hamacher's Landing. Mark, dollars would come from which account for that 12 to 1,500?
The 50,000 in the boat landings?
Okay. Who made that motion? Mr. Proud, did you make that?
Yes,
Is that limited to that 1,500?
I would think, yes, it would be. That's what we've heard, 12 to 1,500, so. And he's got to
I'm
come,
just
he's got to
asking
come
for-
back to us.
I'm just
So are you
asking
asking for a dollar by him? I recommended and made a motion to approve the hiring of Anderson without a dollar
At 12 to
amount.
15,
Correct, at what was presented by Mr. Burlingame.
okay. Any other questions?
Would the amount of property being appraised change the value? If you were talking to
To your point, that's what I was thinking, Steve. If it was at 2 acres, that's one appraisal. But if you increase that to 2.5.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to make a great deal of
I don't
difference.
think it'll make much difference.
So that's where the swing is between the 12 and 15, I would think that's.
So we go up to the 15, we should be fine.
Okay.
I would hope it would cover it.
Again, we have a motion and a second to hire an appraisal to appraise the Hamacher Road, Hamacher's Landing.
Who would facilitate that in your motion, Steve?
That's what I asked Steve about.
Oh.
So,
No, I mean from our side. So is this Bob facilitating and
Yes.
bringing that back to us?
yes. Yes. Is that factual? Bob is going to bring that back to us at the...
So we're,
He's the one that's doing the negotiating with, remember, he started this whole thing.
yep,
Okay.
well, and they own it.
Huh?
And they own it, we don't own it.
Yeah, they own it, and that's why I think this, if I may interject, that's why I think the spreadsheet's so important, because it really gives who does own it, and who, I don't think the Lake District really wants, I mean, it's up to your board, but
Okay.
I think you want to own that.
We're going to call a question here. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Carried. Which makes the next item, the RFP for engineering on the Hamaker Landing, mute because we don't know where we're going yet.
Yeah.
All right, next is a resolution, policy and procedure for the board of the Lake District. I asked you to bring your draft along. I did have a discussion with my corporation counsel at Rock County, informed me that changes need to be voted on per change or at least per section. So we're going to start with Rule 1A again. Are there any amendments? We do have a motion and a second to approve the rules of procedure. We're going to go through this and see if there's any amendments to that. So Rule 1A. Any changes to Rule 1A? Or Rule 1, let's say A through C.
Do you have an extra copy of that, Mr. Chairman? Thanks.
Did you want to explain anything to the?
No, we've talked to this thing to death. I think we need to, I can go through the policy if that's what's needed. Yes.
Is this basically like a charter for your, for the?
It's a policy and procedure manual. It's how the district board operates. And it touches on a bit of the annual meeting.
Does it touch on state law about all administrative regulations?
That's in chapter 33. I don't think we need to.
You don't need to?
I don't think so. We reference, we're going to, I would hope, that we reference that.
Okay, that's just so you tie it. I tie it
Right in the first rule.
But this is pretty much the same as the Lake District rules and regs that, following that guideline.
together. Okay.
Any changes to Rule 1?
I'll move for approval of the first of Rule 1.
As presented?
Here, yes.
Well, you might want to read that, Carrie. Underlined.
Yeah. Basically, the change on the first one is the board shall meet on the first or third Thursday of the month and of every month, but the chair can cancel a meeting if there's a lack of business. Like, we've been pretty busy up till now, but it may get to the point where there's not enough business to warrant having the meeting every month, and at the chair's discretion, he can then so cancel that one.
So how about referencing the statute in Rule 1A? Would you read that, please?
The very first rule, he's got, as provided by Wisconsin Statute Chapter 33, and that brings it back to where it's already been set up, the rules that we are following now. And everything else is...
Is that a motion for Rule 1?
It's motion for Rule 1, yes.
Is there a second?
Second.
So the motion and the second is to change Rule 1A and reference Wisconsin State Statute 33 and amend C to have the monthly meetings on the first or third Thursday of the month, of every month. So we're going to strike in the months of January, March, May, July, September, November, and add the chair may cancel a meeting due to lack of business. Questions on that motion? Questions on that motion? All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's carried. Okay, the next one would be Rule 2, format of the agenda. Any changes to the format of the agenda?
Could you add a pledge to the flag in here?
We could.
Have to call the order.
That's a chair process. Any changes to the agenda, format of the agenda? There's some suggested ones on there if you just read them as printed.
There's no changes down until
Just
format of agenda.
Yeah, just read the total format.
Call to order. Point 2, action, confirmation of meetings with public notices. 3, action on the agenda. 4, action, approval of minutes. 5, public comment on agenda items. 6, action on the treasurer's report. 7, action on bills and invoices. 8, reports. Dam, landings, and lake access and finance. 9, action on resolutions and/or contracts. 10, public comment. 11, comments from commissioners, and 12, adjournment.
Is that a motion?
Also move.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Questions on that motion? Questions on that motion? All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Item C. Item D. Item E. Item F. Item G.
I think I flunked speed reading. Give me a-
Well, I mean, last meeting we talked about removing item D.
So that would take you back to state statute, it would be a 24-hour notice.
And I don't remember what the reasoning behind it was. Jenny had a ton of information, as we were going through this last week. She had a bunch of insight from stuff she'd been involved in.
Mm-hmm. Well, state statute is 24-hour notice for meetings, and I think that's just too short. So the draft says 1 week. Do you think that's...
No, I was just saying that we talked about it last week, and I don't remember what the reasoning, or last meeting, I don't remember what the reasoning behind it was, but I have it crossed out on mine, so I'm not sure why.
You're welcome to make a motion.
I don't.
Okay, where was I?
On through F, I believe.
Yeah.
Okay, item F. Item G. Item H. Item I. Item J. Item K. Item L.
I had written up three or four items before. I think that comes into play, Mr. Chairman, on L, that I'd like to see we rotate the appointees from various areas, being from Rock County and from town of Fulton, so that they're serving on an annual basis and we're getting new ideas, fresh blood in every year.
May I interject? If you read Article 33 and you read the people of that book, it spells it out just black and white blatantly that Rock County, the county with the most revenue appoints whomever they would like, and the township with the most revenue appoints whomever they would like. We, as a board, you have no decision-making power over to change that. None whatsoever, Steve.
I think we're making changes right now
You
to it.
cannot change that part of it. That's state law.
I'm not an
And that's where
attorney.
you're going to have to, if you want to check with your attorney.
Well, yeah, and the same could be said for any commissioner on here, if that was the case, and then we're limited to 1 year, and then you get a new board.
It spells, I mean, again, the book spells it right out.
Yeah.
You know, what the terms are.
Like the book spells it out?
You can't
Okay,
change
Bill,
that.
Bill, I'm not here to argue with you, and that's what you want to get into.
No, I'm not.
I'm here to express my opinion, and that's what I thought the chairman was asking for, was our opinion.
Are you a term of service? When you get elected, the elected members, not the appointed members. Isn't there a term of service there?
For elected only, not for appointees.
I'm elected. Gary is elected.
No, you're not elected to this board, though. You're appointed to this board, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
But I
think
am
we're
elected.
talking, you're elected to Rock County, agree, but you're not elected to this board, and that's what I thought your question was.
I'm elected through the,
Aren't your question have to do with all of us, Mark, myself, Mike, Jim Jelinek, those five are elected and have served 3-year terms.
I heard the service, right, the appointed.
They could be appointed,
I'm elected, and so is Carrie.
not to this board, though.
He's elected chairman. He's both. He's bi. Yeah,
Right. That is correct.
exactly right.
And in a year, the Rock County may change their appointee, or our board, Fulton Town Board could change the appointee too, so.
Anything else on item L? Rule 3. A.
Question on 3A, typically we've had the annual meeting in July, you're saying in August?
Yes.
The rationale before, and whether it changes, that's what we're here for, was in July so that the composition of people that are not full-time residents would be here and would be able to make the annual meeting.
When did we have the annual meeting in 19?
July.
August 10.
August 10th, right, because we could not get the auditorium. But it typically in most, I think if we go back over history, it's probably been in August once or twice, and typically it's been in the month of July.
I recall third week in August.
Yeah, I think it's been in August a bunch, Steve.
Is it?
Yeah.
As long as it's near the middle of August, not towards the end.
It needs to be in the beginning or the middle of August, because otherwise it conflicts with kids going back to school. So I think we did it the second Saturday of August a bunch of years.
Okay, item B and C. Mark, you said you had some amendments?
Yeah, I would like to make a motion to strike B1 through 5, as well as C, and then add the new language below. 3B1 balance sheet for the general fund, with the exception of, I'd like to remove the support with bank account activity, because that seemed to be a problem with most, that we had the bank statements posted or any banking information. So available upon request or whatever, but not part of the process.
Okay, let me back up. Item B, strike everything but the last sentence. That would be all items in the Rock-Koshkonong Lake District Treasury report shall require board approval. That is left in?
Yes.
Okay.
So that would be replaced with 3B1 balance sheet, beginning balance, additions, subtractions, bills to be paid, ending balance, anticipated spending through the fiscal year end, 3B2, Lake Restoration Fund, Dam Fund, project allocations, and then making sure that the allocations meet the intent of the fund. Once we get language written around that, so there's some sort of board approval that if we allocate money from the funds, that they meet the intent of the fund.
So your motion is a basic outline of your reporting process?
It's what I'm doing now, but it's in Word, a format to.
So it's codified in policy then?
Right, so we can carry forward with the same strategy and method, so it's understandable in the future.
Okay.
Because I came in and did what I thought I should, rather than what Ray was doing. If you look at the 2019 budget update, that's Ray's spreadsheet that I finished filling in for the last couple months, kind of relearning what he was doing versus what everybody wants to understand and know. And then I added in 3B3. It pertains more to cost of operations. If we have a change in service or an addition to our cost of operations, I think that's something that should be flagged for the commission and for the public. And then 3B4, I'd like to go to a purchase order request format when we are talking about spending money on these projects.
Excuse me to interrupt, just projects, we talk shovels and things like that. How are you thinking to handle that part? And I know it's minuscule, but
Yeah,
I like your idea of the policy here.
Items below the cost of operations. I'd like to get all of our cost of operations fixed costs and take everything project related below that for lake management, under that lake management line. So basically, we've done expense reports, so if you go buy a shovel for $17, everybody agrees, yeah, that's fine. But we had a $2,500 limit, but for transparency, I think we should talk about all the money we spend, and rather than approve a bill, we should approve the spending, which is what a purchase order does. So if we have a process that requires us to request a purchase order to spend the money, then we don't get a bill that we don't want to pay for. Once you get a bill, you have to pay for it. You've authorized.
Okay, to Steve's question, when we come forward with an invoice or a receipt, any member of this board, for these small tools, are you looking at a different category, the lake fund, category for those small items. They're basically related to the dam or the buoys or something like that.
Yeah, and, you know, the buoys should be moved up to the cost of operations, and anything,
So would small tools.
yeah, it's, you know, running the dam is our cost of operations.
Right.
A wide range of legal or professional services like that shouldn't be in our cost of operations. They should be below the line because they're a variable cost and maybe associated more so with a project, or like we're talking, you know, land closing or contract issues or whatever. That wouldn't be a normal day-to-day activity. So I think some of the little stuff could get buried into that cost of operations, so to speak, without contest, but anything with any value that isn't a day-to-day regular cost of operations should be ran through a purchase order process or a request for funds of some sort. Then we maintain our budget, or we go to the constituents and explain why we have to move money from here to there to fund what we're trying to do to accomplish what they've approved as the voters. So whether you call it a purchase order or a request for funds, right. So that should be part of our protocol to allocate funds to these projects, I believe. Certainly we're going to stay within budget.
Okay. And I should be a good time to mention this. When we get the policy language nailed down, Jenny and I are going to format this. And I'm going to ask Mark's help, since his motion to amend is a rather lengthy one, all having to do with financial reporting. I'm going to ask Mark to participate in the formatting of this document. So, anything else?
And then I think we owe everyone a quarterly budget update, similar to what I did to give the report of what's left, flag anything that's going sideways under that cost of operations, below the cost of operations, meaning we verify the cost of operations are tracking, the lake management budget items are tracking properly, they're funded, and it gives you an opportunity to purchase orders that you've written versus committed money. I guess you can forecast into that budget update quarterly.
So is that under that Rule 3 as well?
Yeah, 3B5 I have that under.
Okay.
And, then correcting the budget with requests to move funds as needed. If we're falling short somewhere and we need to complete, then that's where we need to start moving money around to satisfy.
That's in your proposal as well?
It is under 3B5.
Okay.
Under that quarterly budget update.
Okay.
And I don't know that meets state statutes, but otherwise you let it go underwater and explain the overture and then balance forward. So it doesn't matter if you have so much money, but in order to track to what the constituents voted for, that you're doing what they want, rather than our past of doing the one important thing and the rest suffers. I just want to avoid going down that road again, so.
Okay, is that all?
Yep.
Okay. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that.
Discussion on the motion. Quite a lengthy motion for review of financials.
I think the discussion, I think it's a good motion. I would ask, or I guess I'm asking on this whole document, since we did approve legal tonight, are we going to have legal look at
We
the
can,
final
yes.
draw up to make sure that everything does conform with
We can.
30?
It's a good idea.
We can. I was getting it done for free prior to this, but. Discussion on the motion. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
So as a whole, the draft of the Rules of Procedure 2019-1, Rock-Koshkonong Lake District Board of Commissioners, on the amended draft, as amended. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Public comment. I don't want to hear anything about the weather. Justin?
Mark, I'm looking at page 2 here and all this money back and forth. It's in the wording of the segregated fund and the lake restoration fund there for specific uses, and the taxpayer is supposed to be involved. But it sounds like this money was just getting used by the board however they wanted without taxpayer knowledge. Is that the case? Is that what's going on?
We were explained that it was used to fund overspending on legal, and we were also told that there was a resolution in 2014, but I haven't seen it. And that was, from what I understand, Bill O'Connor approved the borrowing so he could be paid.
That's not in the fund, wording of the fund.
I agree, but I wasn't involved. I'm trying to avoid that in the future.
Do any of the board members who were around at that time know why the money was borrowed for legal without taxpayer knowledge? Steve? Mr. Bowers?
Everything I was involved in was,
Mr. O'Connor approved it and said, okay, hold on. You asked for a question, let us
Go ahead.
respond, please. That it was approved by legal, who also said that state statutes did not require that it be disclosed. That came from legal. Well, then you have to go to bring that up with Mr. O'Connor.
I think that's what Mr. Connor isn't sitting here, Steve.
Any other questions? Justin, you have any other questions?
This was the most productive meeting of the Lake District of all that I've attended. More than almost all of them combined, and I've been coming for the last 4 years. Good job.
I just have a real thank you for the whole issue of policy. You said that there's resolution, that there was a resolution made. In the town, there is a book of resolutions that are considered to be permanent records. Now, I don't know if the Lake District comes under that part of official records. You keep a book of policies, you keep a book of resolutions. I don't know that you guys are going to pass any ordinances, so that's probably not going to be any value. And a book of minutes, and those are considered permanent, forever records that should have been around long before you guys came along.
And what I did say was we were told
What?
that there was a resolution
And
made.
you have no book of resolutions anywhere.
The only ones are on the website, I think.
Excuse me, yes, the resolutions from 2000, from 1998 to present, other than the last year, there are, if you go to the webpage, there are resolutions there.
Okay, but the idea of having a permanent record is if you change them, you update them or do things like that, it's all got to be
Not
read,
arguing
it's all got to be.
that. But when you say there are no resolutions, there are resolutions that are posted on the webpage, you can print them. But I totally agree with you, that the Lake District, there is no history, paper history, that I can find, or anybody can find, it seems like, from 98 forward. And I think that's a real sham. And I think moving forward, you need paper, and that people, when they ask for an open record request, they get it. And none of this past BS, I'll leave it at that.
Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
I just want to make a comment. trustees had made a comment about fresh blood, and made me think of other boards I have been a part of, where there is a limit as to how many re-elections you can participate in. You can always come back at a later date, but, you know, a suggestion that people that do want fresh blood, that's a good way to get fresh blood, is to...
That was actually on my list of
elections
changes.
that, you know, someone can consecutively run for office.
Any other questions?
Could we forward that to Washington?
Well, I would vote for that.
Yes, sir.
I just want to follow up on what Bill Burlingame was presenting. It's common on some of these public land purchases to include environmental hazard assessment. You might want to consider that. If you do that, it relieves you of responsibility in the future if there's a problem found.
At least a phase one.
I mean, you may, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
How about artifacts?
Yes, sir.
We're gonna do something about fresh blood, it's called election. Vote them out. There's more people there don't want you in office than out, vote them out. I mean, that's just a simple way, democratic way of doing it. Have election.
Assistant Chair, I'd just like to compliment the board on the job they're doing to redo the finances and policies and procedure. I've been treasurer for 2 organizations and 1 not-for-profit, and I was given every record, every statement, every invoice, every bill, every deposit slip. I also audited my church for 15 years, same thing. So the fact that records were not turned over to Mark Meyer upon his election, that's just unconscionable.
Thank you.
Honestly, he was it.
Any other comments, questions? Yes, ma'am.
Besides what he was saying, think about artifacts, because that area of Sumner is loaded with Native American stuff. And you don't want to suddenly dig up...
Yeah, that'd be
skeleton.
real expensive.
Actually, right near there, not more than a block from where we're talking about, there is a Native American burial on someone's property down on Lake Drive. So I just want to warn you about that.
Any other questions?
I just have a comment about the water, and I'd like to thank the board for seeking remedies to the flooding problem. I'm happy about installing the new gates at the dam. I'm hoping this will work. Our shoreline is disappearing, trees are falling and uprooting, and the marsh is more like a pond than a grass marsh. The landscape around the lake can't take much more destruction.
Thanks, Jerry. Any other questions? Comments from commissioners? I'll start out, maybe Kim, you could help me out here. There's been an order to remove the rubble underneath the dam. I'm kind of out of the information loop here. Did I read that in your paper? Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, think about
The bridge. The bridge.
There has been a draft that was presented between both groups, the DNR and DOT. The draft was meant to go to the contractor, Rock-Koshkonong, which is the contractor.
Oh, the general, okay.
General contractor, so they're going to create that draft and send that draft. That was the last that I understood.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments by the commissioners? Hearing none. Item 13. Not all at once.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
So second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'll go back down to Gander and see if there's any more 80% off fishing lures I need.
We still got stuff left down there since you've been there?
Yes, yeah. Oh, that's it. I got plenty of lures.